Hi everyone, my name is Abby, and today I'll be sharing my personal reflection on domestic and family violence within maternity care. Before I begin, I would like to acknowledge the Darug and Gundungurra people whose land this reflection is being recorded on. I pay my respects to elders past, present, and emerging, and recognise their profound connection to country. I would also like to acknowledge that some topics discussed today may be distressing, particularly for those with lived experience of domestic or family violence. Free and confidential support is available through Lifeline, Beyond Blue, and 1-800-RESPECT. Within Australia's maternity care system, screening for domestic and family violence is a routine component of antenatal care because pregnancy is recognised as a time of increased vulnerability to intimate partner violence, and existing abuse may escalate during pregnancy. The Australian Institute of Health and Welfare reports that intimate partner violence remains one of the most common forms of violence experienced by women in Australia, particularly among young women. Research by Baird and colleagues also highlights that the association between domestic and family violence and poorer maternal and perinatal outcomes, reinforcing that domestic violence is a significant public health issue. One aspect that has stood out for me is the importance of how screening is conducted. Women should be given the opportunity to speak privately with a trusted midwife who is attentive to both verbal and non-verbal cues. Midwives should explain that screening is routine, confidential, and intended to support women's safety and well-being. Research from 2023 found that Australian women viewed routine inquiry more positively when it occurred respectfully and within trusting relationships. Prior to studying midwifery, my understanding of domestic violence was largely limited to physical abuse. Throughout this degree and my clinical experience, I've learnt that domestic and family violence can also involve coercive control, emotional abuse, intimidation, financial abuse, and isolation. This has reinforced for me the importance of healthcare professionals understanding the different forms of abuse in order to support early identification and intervention. My university learning has also introduced me to the importance of strengths-based language. Rather than viewing women solely through the lens of victimhood, strengths-based approaches recognise women's resilience, survival strategies, and efforts to protect themselves and their children. I have learnt the importance of acknowledging protective factors such as supportive relationships, engagement with healthcare services, and help-seeking behaviours, as well as recognising acts of resistance women use to maintain their safety. Through my learning and clinical experience, I've also reflected on the long-term impacts of intimate partner violence. Repeated exposure to fear and control can contribute to complex trauma and affects a woman's sense of safety and autonomy. Campo discusses domestic violence during pregnancy and early parenthood may contribute to intergenerational trauma and long-term mental health impacts for both women and children. One clinical experience that significantly impacted me involved caring for a woman during an antenatal clinic appointment who disclosed witnessing severe domestic violence throughout her childhood, whilst also experiencing abuse herself. She explained that within her cultural context, it had been normalised for husbands to physically discipline their wives. Hearing this disclosure was confronting and emotional. It made me reflect on how cultural beliefs and societal norms can influence perceptions of violence, while also reinforcing the importance of avoiding stereotyping and providing culturally safe care. This experience challenged me to reflect on my own assumptions and approach each woman's story with cultural humility. Another experience that shaped my learning occurred during a psychosocial assessment when I asked a young woman whether she had any AVOs. Because of her age, I unconsciously assumed she would not. However, she disclosed that she had a current AVO against a former partner. This became an important learning moment and highlighted the unconscious assumptions healthcare professionals can carry. I learnt the importance of asking every woman the same screening questions respectfully and without judgment, regardless of age, appearance, culture, or socioeconomic background. Although I have not yet cared for a woman who disclosed current domestic violence within her relationship, I have observed subtle interactions during antenatal appointments that raise concerns, such as partners speaking over women and answering questions on their behalf. These experiences reinforced the importance of remaining observant to relationship dynamics and power imbalances within maternity care. These experiences have also deepened my understanding of continuity of care models such as caseload, midwifery, and MAPS programs. Building trusting relationships over time can create emotional safety and increase the likelihood of women disclosing sensitive information when they feel ready. Baird found that midwives often relied not only on clinical indicators, but also on intuitive gut feelings when identifying domestic violence within continuity relationships. I have also reflected on how difficult it can be for women to leave violent relationships due to fear of retaliation, homelessness, financial instability, or escalation of violence. This has reminded me that our role is to not pressure women into leaving, but to provide support, advocacy, safety planning, and referral to appropriate services. It has also reinforced the importance of recognizing women's strengths and the ways they actively resist violence and protect themselves and their children. Introspectively, I recognize that in my personal relationships, I have historically adopted a rescuer role and often feel emotionally responsible for helping others through difficult situations. In a midwifery context, this has made me aware that caring for women experiencing domestic and family violence may be particularly challenging for me emotionally because my instinct is often to want to immediately fix the situation. However, through both my learning and clinical experiences, I've come to understand the importance of maintaining professional boundaries and working within my scope of practice. Whilst empathy and advocacy are essential, it is not my role to save women or feel personally responsible for their outcomes. Instead, my role is to provide compassionate, trauma-informed care and connect women with appropriate multidisciplinary supports. This reflection has reinforced the importance of self-awareness, reflective practice, debriefing, and professional support within midwifery. Recognizing my own emotional responses will help me provide safer and sustainable women-centered care whilst reducing the risk of compassion fatigue. My in-class learning and clinical experiences have reinforced the critical role of the midwife in providing woman-centered, trauma-informed, and culturally safe care. The International Confederation of Midwives, Nursing and Midwifery Board of Australia, and Australian College of Midwives all emphasise the importance of respectful communication, informed decision-making, advocacy, and continuity of care programs when supporting women experiencing vulnerability or violence. Through this reflection, I have come to understand that trauma-informed care extends beyond routine screening. It involves creating emotional and physical safety, fostering trust, and ensuring women feel heard, respected, and in control of their care. I have learnt that even small interactions such as strengths-based language or providing opportunities for private conversations can significantly influence a woman's sense of dignity and safety. This reflection has also highlighted opportunities for my future professional development. As a graduate midwife, I recognise that learning in this area is ongoing, and I would like to undertake further education through programs such as DV Alert and training offered by New South Wales Health Education Centre Against Violence. Continuing to develop my knowledge and skills will help me provide safer and effective support for women and families affected by domestic and family violence. Overall, this reflection has deepened my understanding of domestic and family violence as a significant midwifery and public health issue. Most importantly, it has reminded me that midwives are uniquely positioned to provide compassionate support, identify signs of violence, advocate for women, and help create a safe environment during an incredibly vulnerable period in their lives. Thank you for listening to my reflection today. If you or someone you know is experiencing domestic or family violence, support is available through 1-800-RESPECT.